Hello, everybody. This devotion today is getting us to the 21st chapter of John's Gospel. We're going to look at the first 8 verses, verses 1 to 8 in chapter 21 of John's Gospel. And this devotion is being recorded for January 28th of 2022, and that happens to be a Friday. So that means we won't have a devotion on tomorrow for Saturday, though I will be preparing one probably tomorrow to be broadcast on Monday. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there for you as you're watching. We're looking at the first 8 verses. I talked a little bit about chapter 21 yesterday. I am of the mind, I agree with the majority of biblical scholars. Now, not necessarily pastors and ministers. You have to remember there's a difference between the ministry and the scholars. So probably the majority of ministers would say that it was written at the same time. But to go to the scholarly end of the spectrum, most of them would say that this last chapter was added. Now there is some disagreement then whether it was written by the original author, and of course you have disagreement on whether John is written by John, the disciple John, son of Zebedee, or whether it was written by somebody in his name from the Johannine community. I believe it was written by someone from the Johannine community, probably written close in time to the epistles of John that we have in the Catholic, what we call the Catholic epistles, which we've already done those. Haven't we done all of the John? We did First John. We haven't gone past that, so we might work on those later. Hey, that might be another series of devotions. But at any rate, this is the background we're dealing with. I would support that it was someone else, but partly I will confess that's because it works for my theory of the beloved disciple not being John. And so I will confess some bias in my determination there. But that be what it may be, let's look at these 8 verses and see what we can get from the story about Jesus' what they say is the third appearance of Jesus, but really it's not after his resurrection. It's really the 4th appearance of Christ, because we have to remember he appeared to Mary Magdalene outside the tomb when she thought he was the gardener. And shame on you if you think that, oh, this is his third appearance to the disciples. Well, that would mean that you're not counting Mary as one of his disciples, one of his students, one of the people that were learning from him, one of the people that were out witnessing for him. I would count Mary among the disciples, though she's not considered one of the 12 apostles. She is definitely a disciple. So this is his 4th appearance after his death and resurrection. So, without any further ado, let's jump into John chapter 21, verses 1 to 8. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, we will go with you. They went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, children, you have no fish, have you? They answered him, no. He said to them, cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. Okay. We have 7 people. Interestingly enough, we have Simon Peter, and then we have Thomas, who was in chapter 20. Well, it's very important, the doubting Thomas. He was the last one to witness Christ resurrected among that group. But he's the one that made that great profession of faith, perhaps one of the greatest professions of all faith in the gospel. See, my God, my Lord. And then we have the sons of Zebedee, would be James and John, the sons of Zebedee, not James the just, the brother of Christ, but James and John, the sons of Zebedee, the sons of thunder. And then 2 others that, for whatever reason, John doesn't identify. And there has been some that would say that that negates the idea that the beloved disciple is John, because he never, the whole idea is that he always calls himself the beloved disciple because he doesn't want to identify himself. Well, here he's already identified himself as the son, one of the sons of Zebedee, and then he has two other people he doesn't identify. So there is that I see the logic in that. I do confess I find it a little too clever by half, which sometimes we are, and sometimes I can be too clever by half. Not saying that I'm clever, mind you. But here, Peter is, whatever, is he bored? Is he frustrated? Is he feeling that they're running out of food? What is the motive for him to say, hey, I'm going to go fishing? We don't know. I suspect perhaps it's just, at this point in this stressful situation, Peter feels the need to go back to something familiar, so he goes back to the family boat, and he says, maybe he went back and said, "Hey, Dad, I need to go fishing," or maybe he had the boat. Maybe he was still hiring men that were running his business for him. We don't really know. We don't know. There's no explanation to that. He must have had somebody doing something because he was not destitute. He was able to continue to finance the ministry of Jesus. In John's gospel, that's 3 years long. Now, remember, in John's gospel at the beginning, it doesn't talk about them being fishing and all of that. That's synoptics. So let's not conflate that into this. But what we have here, we have this last miracle story in John's gospel in nearly the same place as the first, in Cana, the wedding in Cana, remember? And of course, the story there was a story of abundance, remember? With all of that water turned into all of that wine, it was so much. There was so much more than was needed. Here we have this catch of fish, and it hasn't told us yet how many there are. That'll be tomorrow, or it'll be Monday's devotion. But it's so much they can't pull it. They're not able to haul it in, and where that says that when it's haul it in, that's that in Greek that's drag, meaning drag, and it means like unable to unsheath the sword because it's it's corroded perhaps, but it's that you can't get it in. It's just and that is what's going on there. So they cast it out. I might point out here though that the moral of the story, a little bit whimsical, is they always fish from the right side of the boat, not the left. But that's not really true. That's not what it's about. Just an aside. But at any rate, here it's about this abundance. And once they don't recognize Jesus, but they're 100 yards away. I mean, if you see somebody in the end zone of a football field, if you're on the other end zone, yeah, if you know who it is, maybe, but that's enough distance. It's a little hard sometimes to identify somebody, and who knows whether 100% identify somebody. It's a bit of a distance. And it's a bit of a distance, it's not far away, they say here. I don't want to swim 100 yards. At any rate, though, but the point I want to bring up here about Peter is in the NRSV, he says he's naked. And not all translations say he was naked, because that wouldn't necessarily mean stark naked. That could mean that he had on just his underclothing. The word there says put on his clothes means to put back on his outer garment, and it then says to gird himself. It doesn't say that in the NRSV, but it means to put on the garment, to gird oneself, which means to draw it up, tie it, as if ready for battle, or in this case, swimming, physical activity. So that's what's going on there, and of course that is showing the impetuous nature of Peter. He can't wait. He dives right in and gets there. So. That is, I think, the story that we can gather from that. That we're out, and here is the story we can gather from that. I backtrack. They have left basically Jesus behind. They've not waited for him. They've gone out on their own in the dark, and they're having no luck, and that in fact could be in danger. And it's not until Jesus shows at the break of day, and the day breaks when Jesus shows. That's when we have the light come into the world, is when Jesus shows up, and that's when things start to be productive, because we're listening to him and we're taking our directives from him. We're not doing things on our own initiative any longer. we should always remember as Christians what we're doing, we're supposed to be doing for God. We're supposed to be following Christ's example, and Christ directly is through the Holy Spirit. So if we're doing things for ego, if we're doing things for other reasons, then we're not doing them for the right reason. And that is the moral of the story. All right, and fish on the right side of the boat while you're at it. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. We will get back to this, and we'll talk a little bit more about the church. The Catholic Church has their tradition about where this was at. I've been there. We'll talk about that on Monday. Okay? Have a blessed day. Be a blessing to someone today, and have a very wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.